Now you got it. Okay, Peter 1, Peter 2.
Peter 2.
Peter 3.
Peter 3.
All right, let's do this.
Let's
Ready?
go. Wait. I love you guys.
It can be said that Spider-Man is the Marvel superhero with the most fans in the comics. This is because this superhero feels relatable to our everyday lives, where Peter Parker isn't a perfect guy and even has a lot of flaws, whether from economic factors or being an awkward dude who ends up as a bullying victim during school and college. It's known that in this modern era, Spider-Man movies have been portrayed by 3 actors: Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland, each with different approaches to the story and the Spider-Man character. And here, we'll discuss how similar their Spider-Men are to the original comics.
Okay, guys, here he comes.
Tobey Maguire really stands out in his role as Peter Parker, who looks awkward and tends to get bullied. His version of Peter Parker also seems to struggle hard in his tough economic life with all sorts of dilemmas and handling the duality between his life as Peter Parker, the freelance photographer for the Daily Bugle newspaper, and his superhero life. And this truly follows the original comics. In addition, the story of his relationship with Aunt May, Uncle Ben's death, and the ups and downs of his romance with Mary Jane are very faithful to the comics plot. However, even though his Spider-Man costume is very similar to the classic comics, Tobey's Spider-Man makes a big deviation in his ability to shoot spiderwebs from his hands. Also, Tobey-era Spider-Man is considered too serious compared to the chatty Spider-Man in the comics.
Alright, so you don't want to talk? There you go.
Andrew Garfield brings a Spider-Man with the signature trait of always being chatty and often cracking sarcastic jokes during fights. So his Spider-Man behavior can be said to be the closest to the comic version. In terms of the costume, Garfield's Spider-Man got criticism in his first movie because the costume was a bit different from the comics, but it was redesigned in the second movie to look closer to the comics aesthetic. The use of his mechanical web shooters is also a big step toward fidelity to the comics and highlights Peter's intelligence. In addition, his relationship with Aunt May, the tragic story of Uncle Ben, and his romance with Gwen Stacy are still within the scope of the comic story. Unfortunately, Garfield-era Peter Parker feels too far from awkward and instead looks cool, and his tough economic life as told in the comics isn't highlighted much in the movies.
I'm gonna die.
Tom Holland's Spider-Man also stands out with his chattiness during battles, just like his costume, which is very faithful to the comics. And don't forget, his version also uses homemade web shooters, showing that his Peter Parker is smart. His teenage Peter Parker life, which looks chatty and full of enthusiasm, actually seems the most fitting to the teenage Spider-Man version in the comics. As a result, Holland seems to succeed in capturing the perfect balance between an enthusiastic teenage Peter and a Spider-Man who has to help people around him. However, his Peter Parker's attitude is far from awkward, let alone being a bullying victim. His economic life isn't clarified much in the movies, especially since Holland's Spider-Man seems spoiled with high-tech gear from Stark Industries, and this is definitely far from the image of Peter Parker in the comics who faces economic hardships. In addition, Michelle Jones, played by Zendaya, is a new character just for the MCU movies. Then his story with Aunt May also looks very different from the comics, and the absence of Uncle Ben's story in his Spider-Man movies is a big minus on its own. And that's the various pros and cons of the 3 actors who played Spider-Man when viewed from their similarity to the comics. Even so, they each still have their die-hard fans. As a result, hysterical screams from the audience echoed in the theaters when all 3 were brought together in one frame in the movie Spider-Man: No Way Home. So, which Spider-Man era is most similar to the comics for you? And which Spider-Man actor do you like the most?